more participation than we ever thought. So thank you so much. This is awesome. It's great to see everybody on here. It is 10 o'clock. I think we've got most board members on the call. We're missing, who we're missing? Diana? I thought she was going to come on. Is Diana on here? She is? Okay. And then Mary Ann. Oh, I see Diana now. Mary Ann, I know Kevin said he wasn't sure if he was going to be late, but he's here, so that's awesome. And so I think we've got everybody. On that note, I'll call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask the board members to unmute themselves. I'm not muting and unmuting you. So board members, if you could unmute yourself, call the meeting to order. Motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Second. Do you have a motion to adopt the agenda? Cricket?
Debbie,
yeah. Can I hear somebody?
Debbie did that.
Debbie was, yeah, for the motion, sorry.
And I think Diana seconded.
David, I can't hear you.
I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted. I can
Still
hear
nothing.
you, David.
You're not mute on my end. So something's up.
it was Debbie and Mary Ann.
Brian, can you?
I'm here. I can hear everybody fine.
I can't hear you either. Is it me?
Yep.
Vanessa, I think it's your audio somehow.
Yeah, Vanessa, can you hear me?
Mine. Let's see. Speaker. Everybody can hear me, so let's see here. Speaker, speaker. Okay, I cannot hear you all.
That's not good.
Interesting. Can everybody hear when David and Brian are speaking?
Yes. I hear Brian.
So it's me. Perfect.
I hear Debbie.
David, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and take over the meeting till I figure out what's going with my audio.
Okay.
I am on my AirPods, but for whatever reason, I'm not sure why I'm not hearing it. I'll figure it out.
So I'm going to go ahead and start. So she's already called the meeting to order. Debbie had a motion to adopt the agenda, and I think the second was from Diana. Yes? Nod your head, Diana.
It was
It was from Mary Ann.
Oh, from Mary Ann. Sorry, Mary Ann. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor of adopting? Aye. Any opposed? So we'll go to the first item, which is management update. And I think that's on Steve, right?
Yes, I'll go ahead and take over then. Thank you and good morning to everybody. Happy Friday. So we're going to start with the reopening of the pool update. And first and foremost, I just want to thank Nikki. Nikki really worked to put together the plan after last Friday's meeting, got everything together over the weekend, and we were able to open the pools on Monday morning at 7 o'clock. So thank you so much, Nikki. And then thank you for the team here all coming together, taking shifts, and working out at the pool throughout the week. So I really appreciate everybody's support and help with that. And then I want to thank the residents because as I go through my update this morning, you're going to hear that there's very positive opening of the pools for this week. Capacity levels were great. Residents were very respectful. So overall, it was a good pool opening. We started the reopening of the pools with the hours of 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And during that time frame, we did 2 hours open and 1 hour closed. And again, when it was time to close, residents left the pool area. We went through and did a cleaning. We have a spray container. And I'm going to ask Mike to talk a little bit about that here in just a second. But we removed all the lounge chairs and we had only some tables and chairs out at the facilities. And then in between residents coming in and the time that we were closed for the hour, the monitors would go through and spray down the equipment. So Mike, just quickly, if you want to talk a little bit about the spray and the cleaning. You might be muted.
Oh, there we go. Can everybody hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Basically, we used two cleaning products. One was just a general hand sanitizer, 70% alcohol, just like Purell, to touch the main spots when people are entering and leaving the pools. But during the shutdown, we actually used a product called Peroxy HDOX. It is basically hydrogen peroxide, and there's a 5% trade secret formula from that company. It is a kill on contact and recommended by the CDC as their top cleaner for the purpose of spraying down furniture and high touch points. So basically during the 1 hour that we were shut down, our teams would go through with a pump sprayer, hit our flat surfaces, our chairs, and then during that 1 hour time period, anything that was on them is dead and gone. It is not a harmful product. It did not harm the furniture, and it was not a chemical that was dangerous for the employees using it. The SDS sheet did not recommend wearing, you did not need to wear gloves or masks or anything like that, so it was a very safe product to use, and it really was very efficient going through cleaning in that time period.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And as we move forward then, we had our capacity set at 50% for the opening. And when you walked into the pool area, there's a big A-frame sign that had the number right smack in your face, a giant number that showed the capacity. We also had the rules for usage of the pools, and then sanitation when it comes to cleaning your hands and proper wearing a face mask. So we had all that signage out there at the pools, along with the rules. And we had on site a checklist, and we would go through and write the capacity for each 15 minutes within the pools. So the checklist was out at each one of the locations, and I have to self-admit, yesterday I messed up on the schedule, and I missed my time frame at Spring Lake. And when I caught that I read the schedule wrong, I went out there, and the residents had self-policed, and they exited the pool on time. So fortunately, when I got there was nobody in the pool. So I proceeded to clean and do my other duties at that time. But again, residents have been wonderful with this rolling out of the reopening of the facilities. So the checklist has been sent to the board every day. They've been able to see the numbers, the capacity numbers, the at-risk hours on Mondays and Wednesdays. The first day on Monday, we had one little snafu that we figured out when it came to the at-risk and the lap swimming. After that, we haven't had any other issues this week. And the kiddie pool was closed, and we did not hear any concerns or anything from residents that they wanted the kiddie pools back open. So with all of that said, management would recommend that we keep the capacity the same as we did last week. And we also will continue to keep the hours the same, have 2 hours on, 1 hour closed for cleaning. That seemed to work very well. But what I don't think we need is to have somebody sitting there throughout the entire time. I think that if we go back to Nikki's original monitor schedule, I think it gives us sufficient coverage to hit all the pools on that regular 15, 20-minute intervals where we can still record the number of people in those pools. We also have cameras that we can continue to monitor from Town Hall. And if we see our pools at capacity, then we can go and send someone to that pool and ensure that people aren't continuing to go in. We had one time throughout this week where we reached capacity. I believe it was yesterday at North Village. And Nikki was out there, and she just explained to the residents, as people leave, you can come in or you can go to Lakeside because they're not at capacity. And some chose to wait, and they were very polite as they waited, and then and patient, and others went over to Lakeside pool and utilized that pool. So overall, it was a good report for the first week, and I'll take any questions that the board members have.
Steve, this is Brian. Did you guys check the cameras? I mean, I know you said they were online. I mean, did you actually have Patrick or you or somebody looking at them, making sure all coverage looked good and everything to you?
We didn't closely monitor the cameras this week, but we had somebody on site at the pools throughout the week. So we were there, and then we talked about it amongst the team, and then read their reports from all the different people that were out there.
Yeah, and the more genesis of my question is, I know you had somebody out there and your recommendation is to cut it back, and I'd actually sent an email that's what I would recommend too. I would find it valuable to have Nikki explain to us again what that coverage would look like with the cutback, and then did you guys, that's why I'm asking if you looked at the pool, the cameras to actually make sure everything was functioning properly, because I think if we cut back, the cameras are a safety net.
Yeah, so I did ask Patrick to look at those. So Patrick, you're on. Are there any concerns with the cameras on the pools?
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Before we actually opened up any of the pools, I did go through and verify that all cameras are online and we can see all the pools.
Okay, good.
I did not take much time this week since every pool was manned, but I do know that they are operational.
Yeah, so Brian, second part of your question was the coverage. Nikki had laid out a schedule where we would have 2 monitors during the day and 2 monitors during the evening. That split those pools in half, and they drive around to each one, checking capacity numbers, still filling out that form. And then during the hours that we're down, going through and spraying down all the equipment so that we can still get that cleaning in. And then would still ensure residents are 6 feet apart. If we see large crowds at any one pool, we have the capacity here in the office where one of the senior management leadership team can go out there and ensure that we keep the capacity at the levels they're supposed to, or recommend people go to other pools that are at less capacity.
Okay, so if we have 2 monitors on at each time when you're driving across 2 or 3 pools each, they're going to give pretty regular coverage then.
Correct. Yeah, we'll split it in half so that they can do half each.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
So this is Steve, this is David. If we go to your proposed staffing coverage, would we change some of the signage to say residents are asked to maintain the guidelines? There'll be occasional follow-up with staffing, but you need to maintain and honor these guidelines. Otherwise, if you don't self-monitor, in other words, if you go over capacity, then we'll just have to close it down.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we're done, JR will take any new information from this meeting, update the Friday flashes, and we can ensure that there's an emphasis on that again, that as we move into this new type of reopening of the pools, if we go over capacity or if it's abused and it doesn't work, then that's always the board's option to say, this just isn't working, we have to close the pools back down.
Good morning, Steve and everybody else. This is Kevin. First, I'd like to go ahead and say thank you. Thank you to the board, to the residents, to your entire team to go ahead and make this happen. It wasn't easy. And it was definitely a very thought out challenge, but I'm proud of our community right now for coming together and actually following those rules, which definitely helps us to go ahead and go towards the plan that you're mentioning. I'm comfortable, if you're comfortable, to go ahead and proceed this way and you're confident that your staff will go ahead and take care of it. My only request is that if we find an issue or a concern, that we kind of step back to where we were. And if we need to go ahead and do a roving security, if we will, for a majority of the pools, but for the pools that have been higher capacity or hitting capacity in the evenings, maybe those 2, I think it was Heritage, Lakeside, and then now North Village yesterday in the evening, those might be the times that we need to actually have somebody there.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin. If the plan that we originally asked for and now we're asking to reinitiate, if this does not work, then we can always fall back to what we did this week. And yes, it looks like North Village, Lakeside, and Spring Park pools are the largest capacity, so we'll keep an extra eye on those 3 pools.
Awesome, thank you.
Steve, this is Debbie. I have a question. What do you suggest if there's a concern after hours or on weekends, as far as if we receive a complaint or a concern from a resident, who would we contact, or what do you suggest?
Well, Nikki's on. I believe we have a park monitor that will be here on the weekends, and then Nikki will be available on the weekends. And I told her for this weekend, and we'll see in future weekends, different leadership members being on call, but she has me available this weekend also if it really gets out of control, but she'd be first line that they'd contact, and then they can get back to me.
Thank you.
And Nikki, Nikki, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Steve.
Can you elaborate on that?
Debbie, yes, they're more than welcome to give us a call here at Town Hall. I do check my emails periodically, so they're more than welcome to send me a voicemail, or if they want to send an email to parks.rec@celebrationtownhall.com with any concerns. We'll be happy to review and report it to the park monitor so they can closely monitor those locations.
And JR, if you could add that to the Friday Flash communication, that email address, and any voicemail messages that are left go to our phones through email, through our voice over IP system. So Nikki will be able to get those right away.
Are there any other board members who have comments? Sorry about that. Thank you all.
Welcome back.
Questions? Thanks. Thanks for taking over. Any other board members? Do we need to make a motion with the regards to our change in the direction?
I believe so, because
Susan.
you did motion and vote on it last Friday. So if you could motion and vote on the update, that would be great.
Do I have a board member who would like to motion now that I can actually hear you?
This is Brian. I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we keep everything consistent with the way it has worked this week, other than we will have pool monitors rotating coverage amongst the pools.
Do I have a second?
Second, Marianne.
Thank you, Marianne. Further discussion from the board, and then I can open it up to the community. If anybody in the community would like to add anything, you could raise your hand. Board, any further conversation? No comments from the residents? Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call again. Yay or nay, Brian?
Yay.
Marianne?
Yes.
Debbie? You're muted, Debbie, sorry. Okay, David?
I'm abstaining since I voted against this last week, and I still think it's premature to have any amenities open. So I'm abstaining.
Fair enough. Kevin?
Yay.
Diana?
Yes.
Debbie, are you on there?
Sorry, I think I was
That's okay.
muted. Yeah, I'm also abstaining because I had voted against it last week. Thank you.
Okay. Fair enough. And I'm a yay. So motion passes with 2 abstaining, which means they're technically are moving forward with what we have on the table. Do we want to go ahead and move on now to the basketball courts? Steve?
Yes, we wanted to put it back on here. I know last week we talked about keeping it closed. I have not seen any new updates from the governor at this point in time as of this meeting. And there's no new guidelines from NRPA or CDC that I'm aware of when it comes to basketball courts. So the concern last week, I think, still stands is, if you have pickup play or even just regular play out there, they're the bodies close to each other, faces next to each other. It's going to be really difficult to monitor that, to keep it to just shooting. So I think that the concerns that were brought up last week and by the board are still completely valid this week, and we don't have a recommendation to reopen the basketball courts at this time.
Board, I'll open it up to any comments.
I don't think or go ahead, Diana.
I was gonna say, I don't think there's a need really to reopen them, although the governor seems to be gonna open gyms up pretty quickly, or at least that's the news. So, I mean, maybe we look at it again. We'll just look at it again. My suggestion is to look at it again next week, because there is no direction on it at this point.
I agree with Diana, this Marianne. I think we should wait till there's a little more direction and what's happening out there.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I find it very difficult to think about opening a basketball court where we know there's going to be physical contact. I mean, the CDC came out with guidelines, for example, for the pools this week and everything, and we've been in line with all them and everything, and you can have distancing. Gym, I could theoretically figure out distancing with good cleaning. I can't get there on basketball.
Hey guys, this is Kevin. I just have one comment. While I am agreeing with everything that everybody is saying at this time, I was curious that come next week, or when the governor goes ahead and does give that official rule of CDC, if anything about basketball or contact sports, could we see if there might be the ability to use or create a relationship with the school district, the basketball court that they have on property. When that time comes, if the schools are closed, to go ahead, if basketball court's open, to kind of spread it apart. I don't know if that's an option, but it might not hurt to open that conversation.
And the K through 8 school in their parking lot they have a couple basketball hoops there. So again, yes, if the governor gives some direction for reopening, we can reach out to them and get their thoughts on it. But we won't reopen anything prior to bringing it back to the board next Friday.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other comments from the board? On that note, I don't think there's a motion required because we're not doing anything, correct, Steve?
Correct.
Okay. Farmers market reopening. I know before I lost my connection, I know there was some comments on our Zoom chat regarding farmers market. But on that, I'll open it up to Steve. And
with the farmers market, last week I reported that the governor had never shut farmers markets down, and we know that there are other communities within Central Florida that continue to run their farmers market. The farmers market organizers, I believe, called in today so that they could hear the board's conversation on this, and if there's any questions on how they would operate at the social distancing and those kind of guidelines that are put in place, they can certainly answer that for you. But we still have the concern that's been brought up numerous times that you're going to have a large gathering of people in downtown Celebration. And no matter how much you ask for masks and social distancing, you're still inviting people into the community with the farmers market. And there's really no way of locking it down to residents only. So I'll reopen it to the board for conversation with it, but I don't know how we can recommend to reopen when our biggest concern with downtown Celebration is inviting large groups of people into the community.
Board, I'll open you up for comments, questions.
I agree with what you just said, Steve. I think it's premature until we are following the national guidance of reductions over a 2-week period. I don't think we should move forward on any reopening.
Yeah, and let me just say real quick too, I would love for every business to be able to reopen, and I know that there's livelihoods and income that take place with that. So the farmers market folks that are listening, I don't take this lightly. I know that you guys want to get back in business as quickly as possible, but Celebration is unique and different than probably some of those other larger communities. And there is a real legitimate concern in this community that bringing in a lot of non-residents could cause some problems here.
I'll open this up to any of the other board members, and then there's one comment on the chat too that I think is intriguing, and I don't know if we can come up with some type of a venue. Exactly, I saw Dan's comment. I'm wondering if there's some way that we can open up an opportunity for residents to get deliveries from the farmers market. You know, if there's some of the vendors and things like that they want to reach out. I don't know how we facilitate that. But I do know that fresh produce and fresh items from the farmers market is something that many of the residents do look forward to. So I don't know how we balance that, and I don't know how to do that. But I'm open to any ideas or, and again, any further comments from the board.
Vanessa, we can certainly talk to them offline and see if they have some thoughts and suggestions. I mean, I think that there are some groups out there that are doing drive-through type things, and so there may be some suggestions that they have that we can bring back to the board next Friday.
Well, there actually are some very good suggestions coming right down the chat page right now.
Yep.
My concern, I'm going to support David very much on this one, because we're sitting here and we're reopening pools cautiously. We've done the tennis courts and we've done parks and other things. If we start holding an event that gets big, and then we start having a explosion of cases, we end up having to shut down everything. So, I mean, we really have, I believe, have to think carefully about what we allow, because it can have other impacts, not just on that particular item, but on everything we're doing, and we're back to ground zero.
I agree. Anyone else? Comments, questions, board?
This is Kevin.
Go ahead, Kevin, and then I think it was Debbie after that. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm sorry. I greatly miss the farmer's market. I greatly miss getting my produce, but I also, appreciate how safe we are staying and how cautious we are doing it, well orchestrated and plans we're doing every step. When it comes time, it might be something where we open up the farmer's market more on a limited basis when it comes to produce only or whatever the case is. But I am definitely intrigued to see what management and the farmer's market vendor could potentially come up with online things, orders to the door, whatever the case is, to kind of keep them happy and afloat, and still doing the best for commerce for them as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening in Winter Garden as well as downtown Lake Eola, which is the same vendor, Lake Nona, I believe, as well. And hopefully we'll be back to normal soon, but we have to remain cautious at this time.
Thank you, Kevin. Debbie, was that you that were going to make a comment? I'm not sure who was speaking.
Yeah, Vanessa, that's Debbie. There was a very creative plan that possibly some of the vendors could look into from Ballard, Washington, B-A-L-L-A-R-D. If they want to Google that, that had some interesting ideas. Again, I think it's just time to come up with creative and unique ideas, because we're looking at the situation for a long time, but we want these people to be able to get back to business and support them in any way we can. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other board members? Thank you, Debbie. Okay, any comments from the public from residents and owners regarding other than the text? I don't see anybody. You want to help? Okay, very good. Then I will go ahead. I don't think there's any motion that's required, other than if we can come up with some creative, clever idea of having home delivery rather than having groups of people. I think that would be something that maybe we can have a happy blend for fresh produce and fresh items being delivered to people's doors. I agree. I don't think that having groups of people gathered together is a good way of handling that. So again, I don't think there's anything required with regards to a motion. Is that correct, Steve?
That is correct.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and move on to fireworks for Founders Day.
And again, I don't think there's a motion needed on this. I think it's more just an update for those that have been listening in on these calls over the past few Fridays. The board did go into executive session this week to discuss the contract, and it was decided that there will not be any fireworks for Founders Day this year. We're going to regroup and look at planning with the special events committee and lifestyle group the 2021 events for 25th anniversary, 4th of July, and for Founders Day. But for this year's Founders Day, there will not be any fireworks.
Board, I'll open it up to any comments, questions. Board?
I think that was well stated. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, good summary, Steve.
Okay. Then
And
I shall go.
Mr.
Go
Barr
ahead.
has, I think
I'm sorry.
Gerald has his hand up on there.
Sorry, I didn't see you there, Jerry. Let me unmute you here. I will unmute you. All set. Oh, you just mute. There we go. Go ahead. You're all set.
Yeah, I just wanted you to remember that in the fall, we will concurrently be having flu season with COVID. So you should take this into account when you make any decisions regarding events.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then Laurel just asked for a question on the chat, so we can unmute Laurel also.
Okay, let's see. Let me find you, Laurel.
Does it?
Oh, somebody muted you and unmuted you. Try again.
Can you
Laurel?
hear me? Yeah.
There you go. You're good now.
Okay, good. Thank you. No, I just wanted to follow up and, obviously I'm in support of keeping large gatherings out of town. I agree with Dr. Barr that, the fall is still questionable. So looking at 2021 certainly makes the most sense. What was resolved with, I know that there was some commitment on the band and so forth, and that was somebody I think that we use at another time. I don't know if the fireworks company is also the same company that's been used previously. Are those things rolling forward? Are the credits enough that can go into another year? What are the kind of implications or concerns with that? I think the band was one you said is booked at other times, so in particular. So if anybody can speak to just kind of the impact.
Yeah, I think the best way for us to look at this is that 4th of July is completely canceled. So all agreements for 4th of July, those are done. And the legal issues were discussed with the board for the fireworks. So now the Special Events Committee and the Lifestyle team have the option, if there are events in the fall, to utilize those same type performers, utilize them next year. There's not a requirement to do that, though. The 4th of July was canceled. So does that clear up that question?
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So, yep, exactly. Because I know that you said they were common vendors sometimes, but we were all concerned in terms of sort of, you know, both having the crowds here, but sort of balancing that with sort of the financial impact of it. So I would definitely encourage the board to be conservative. Kind of, again, I think, you know, in terms of what Dr. Barr said, I think even when we're looking at 2021, we really need to have some firm information that we've moved into a place that we can have large gatherings. And thankfully, I feel like the board has been really responsive in, you know, staying on the conservative side and looking at that direction and so forth. My only other quick comment that I would say, I did not go to the pool, so I don't know how that went, but just as a resident downtown, I know there's no enforcement, but continually, if our leaders can send sort of gentle, encouraging reminders on, you know, maybe just under the Friday blast of masks, and I think some of that's already being done. I feel like sometimes you know, they're definitely closer tables at the restaurants than I would have expected. I feel like fewer people are wearing masks. I feel like maybe the best example has been Town Tavern in setting out checkpoints and people at the door and various things. So I guess I just want to state what I noticed. I know this board has no governance or oversight, but to whatever extent as leaders of the community, you're speaking to anybody, that would be something that we notice, because we want to keep encouraging, and that was my point on the farmers market. We want to encourage residents to come out, you know, utilize the local businesses, support them, use our parks as they open or our walking trails. But, you know, there needs to be, you know, consistency with that. And so, for instance, I'm encouraged if I go to Target because they're actually enforcing face masks as an example. So just my 2 cents, but I appreciate the board's conservative stance on reopening. So thank you.
Thanks, Laurel.
This is Brian, Vanessa.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you just said.
No, I said this is Brian. I just want to add to Steve's response, because when I listened to Steve's response, it sounded like everything financially was done. We had the meeting to go over the contract. We're still resolving stuff with the fireworks. So I just want to be clear. We are not done on everything financial. We don't have 100% credit on everything.
No, but for my response was just mainly because it was done in executive session and it is a legal matter right now discussing that firework contract. It's just not something that's available to the public. So you are correct. That is not done. But when it comes to future planning, first and foremost, I think it's important that no events have been canceled or have been scheduled as of this point in time. And we still are waiting to see what governor says for any type of phase 2, phase 3 reopenings. We're looking at CDC for guidelines. We're looking at NRPA. We're looking at Florida Health Department. And so as we continue these Friday conversations and we get closer to the fall and we have better data and better information, we'll be bringing all these decisions back to the board. So as of right now, Founders Day, that's still in the air. That hasn't been officially canceled yet, but we're keeping a close eye on it.
Other than no fireworks.
Yeah, there's just no fireworks. Yeah, and we're going to take this item off of the agenda moving forward because it's been settled.
Got it. Any other board comments or anything from anybody else? I don't think I missed any more chat. Did I miss any more chat? Okay. Events for 2020 and other communities. Steve?
Yes, I think we just want to start thinking about what we've addressed summer, we've addressed Memorial Day, and that event will still take place a week from Saturday, and it will have plenty of social distancing. The group's been working together to ensure social distancing, promotion of face masks, all the things that we've discussed. So that event's still going to take place. 4th of July has been canceled. And I think we're looking at towards middle end of August, whether schools are going to be going back and the return to school party. That'll be the next event we start talking about. Then we get into Oktoberfest, and then Founders Day, and the holiday event. So we certainly need some more data and some more time, and we will be bringing these things back to the board. But when it comes to other communities, I think that a lot of communities through the Florida Recs Parks Association chat groups that I've been part of, they're canceling kind of as you guys are through the first part of the summer, and they're kind of still on a wait and see for the fall. Now, there are some other groups that are a little bit more aggressive on canceling and have canceled throughout the entire year. But again, that's strictly up to the board. I'll go back to what I said when we started this at the very end of April for the reopening plans. You always had the opportunity to cancel. There's no financial implications on your fall events yet for canceling, and no deadlines that we have. So I would prefer that you just kind of still wait and see. And it would be amazing if something great happened and this virus cleared up. But if it keeps going down the predictive models, as Mr. Bars pointed out, then you're probably going to cancel them. So we have some more time. And JR, if there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, I just want to say that we're still moving forward as if we're holding events in the fall, just from the logistical standpoint, waiting for direction. Also, I'd like to add that we are going to try to Facebook Live the Memorial Day flag ceremony next week for those who may not be able to attend or want to be out in public. So you could go to our Facebook page at 10 a.m. On the 23rd to see that.
Yeah, and I did make a mistake. It's not Mr. Barr, it's Dr. Barr, and I apologize for that, Jerry.
Thank you. I appreciate that too. Any other comments from anybody else? Perfect. I don't know if this would be the appropriate time to bring this up, Steve, or not, regarding just events in general for 2020, or if we should wait for future meeting discussions. I know that in some of the board emails and things like that, I just wanted to kind of make an update as to one thing we need to discuss is how we as a board want to move forward with these. We're heading up to our May meeting in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, and we've been doing everything via Zoom. We don't have any official notices at all from CDC, from the governor, or anything as to when it's safe, quote unquote safe, to start resuming back in our indoor facilities. I have communicated on a personal note to the board that I think the Zoom, other than my audio this morning, but it was quickly recovered by David when we do have a glitch, that we've actually been doing really well with Zoom, and I think our participation has gone skyrocketed since this has been an option. I am not in any rush at all to start resuming our meetings back in town hall. I think we can conduct very important, valid conversations via our Zoom meetings. The community has been totally engaged in this. If they don't agree with something, they're reaching out to us. If they agree with us, they're reaching out to us. So it just basically, this has gone really well, and I think we should start discussing business as usual, but our business as usual just will happen on Zoom meetings. So I will open this up to the board, and Steve, if this is the opportunity you would like to do this, or if you would like to wait until a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'll address that real quickly. I think that I'm seeing some of the chat comments pop up here, but I think our guideline for this is once there's some recommendations from those sources of authority from the governor, CDC, all the way down on increasing that group size bigger than 10. So there's 7 board members, there's a community manager, there's an executive director. We're at 9 with just that. If you add any staff or any residents that want to attend, now you're getting over the 10. So the Zoom gives opportunity for, I mean, we had over 100 a couple weeks ago, so it gives us an opportunity to really expand and more people opportunity. And anybody that it just doesn't want to leave their house, they can do it through the Zoom format. So I think one of the things we're even talking about, even as the number grows from 10 to 20 or 50 or just no limits at all, how do we still incorporate some sort of Zoom format into those meetings moving forward so that residents can not just watch, but interact and raise their hand and ask questions and provide their 3-minute homeowner comment period. So we'll continue to work with that. But right now, I don't think we're anywhere close to getting back in the building.
Thanks, Steve. And I agree. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, since we all know through the emails that I'm the person that would like to start having some meetings, I'll give the other side of the house. For example, the Finance Committee. I haven't kicked off the Finance Committee because I just think Zoom for the Finance Committee is not going to be a good thing at all. If you're going to go through the finances, you got to have paper in front of you and stuff like that. I understand there needs to be a limitation on the amount of people in the room, and I'm not advocating 1,000 people. Certainly you could have 10 people, or you can have socially distancing and stuff like that. I think at some point in time, we need to allow board members to be in the room together who want to be there, and then start practicing how you do the joint Zoom stuff. Because just like we learned how to do a Zoom meeting, if we end up even with 4 people in a room together, the human interaction I still think has positives. People can do Zoom. Ultimately, I like the Zoom. Ultimately, I think we have Zoom ought to be part of our permanent going forward approach, but we're going to need trial and error. And even if we start small and botch it up and then have to learn how to evolve it, I think that's fine. So I'm not looking for a vote today. I'm not looking for anything other today than that I think there is value in also thinking about some of this stuff too. And I see Gerald's comment about hurricanes and disaster recovery and all other types that's going to be coming at us. I agree with that. It's supposed to be a very active hurricane season. I'd like to see us start moving forward towards whatever our new normal is.
Board? Thank you, Brian. David, was that you?
Yeah, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I welcome the time of moving forward face-to-face. I prefer face-to-face. I'm also very cautious. So I think of this in a sense of tiers, where we start with, at the highest level, what's legal. So then after that, then we get guidance. We get guidance from the CDC or state health department. And then from that guidance, we get a sense of what's safe. But then we also go and we're morphing into this idea of what people are personally comfortable with. While I love the face-to-face and want to get back to it, and even though it may be legal and the guidance says it's okay, I may not deem it appropriate for me. So I think one of the things that I think that we've outlined in some of our principles is we want to move towards, and this would be a request of management to figure out this structure, move towards the varied approaches in the same time and place. I think the last face-to-face board meeting, I was not there, but we were zoomed in. We've tried some platform because there were 3 or 4 people present and live. And then there were some of us who then we discovered 15, 20 minutes later, there's this Zoom product out there. And so we did that. So I think that we need to be looking at multimedia. So I agree with Brian's point that there'll be some things that where you need the paper and you need to be sitting in the same room. But if there's 1 or 2 people who can't be there, what does that physically and technologically look like, A, for that experience of the people in the room, and B, for the recording, whether it's live stream or recorded, so that after the fact, someone can go to that tape and review all the voices that were heard, whether they were live or Zoomed. And I don't know if that can be done live, or if that has to, since you're merging methodologies, live and recorded like this meeting now. So anyway, the request of management is start looking at what those platforms or technologically viable ways of meeting face-to-face and distantly, so that we honor individuals' different comfort levels. So anyway, so as we move forward, I mean, I can't wait to get back to face-to-face and tired of just looking at a screen all day. But in the meantime, this is an appropriate way. But again, looking towards blended methodologies.
Thank you, David. And I will say that doing our Zoom is all recorded, and as a facilitator, I would be fine doing it in both Zoom and live, because you can do both pretty easily. This would actually, in a sense, in in principle, this would become our live streaming rather than actually doing it the other way. So that's at least in my mind, that's something that's that we can move forward to. I agree that we can find a blend. I just saw I can ask the board how they feel about ongoing chats during the meeting. I'm fine with that. Legally, I think when we're doing our board meetings, it's going to be a little bit different. But when we're doing these types of workshops and things like that, it's engagement just like we would in any other workshop. And yeah, I agree. I like the chat box too. It helps call things out. And I can wait till it's an appropriate time to address it rather than addressing it right away. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, Vanessa, this is Debbie. Yeah, I'm fine with the chat box during the informal meetings. I think that's great, but I think for the structure of the formal meetings, that the chat box is kind of like an open comment period that goes on. So I think the chat should be turned off during the formal meetings, but on during the informal.
I agree with Debbie's
Thank you for that.
I agree with Debbie's
Thank
point.
you. Brian, and then I'll open it up to any other board members.
Okay, and I'll go, I'll move off of one other thing, which is whether we're in person or not in person, but also I think we need to get back to the structure of workshops and stuff like that. I worry that there's a lot of big picture items we need to be thinking about. We spent a lot of time on the pandemic and we didn't have a choice. So I mean, that's not a criticism at all, but there are other topics now for workshops and board meetings and that we're going to have to start moving towards, I would hope, in June. So I mean, maybe next week's meeting, we can actually start talking about what meeting structure looks like starting in June. And maybe we can talk about, do we use town hall for anything or nothing? I would be an advocate of town hall, at least for a couple of people, so we can start practicing the Zoom town hall thing that's going to become a permanent thing. And then what are our meeting structures really going to look like going forward? Really, we're talking for the whole summer, I think, now.
I agree. And go ahead, Dave, you agree too. And I think for our work, I think moving forward with workshops, I think we've gotten kind of the better experience on things. On a personal note, is facilitating things. I would feel comfortable in doing both. Doing a full workshop via Zoom. I think it's basically we're doing workshops with a lot of these items. It would just be more of an opportunity for more people to participate. Steve, do you see any logistical issues with that?
No, I don't. In fact, I'm taking notes here. For next Friday's agenda, we can make it to strictly focus on future meeting schedules and moving forward. And then if there's any concerns that we see from the reopening or any new revelations for reopening, we can discuss those at the meeting next Friday.
Okay. Any other board
members? And I would
members?
even say if there's a couple of board members that need to utilize the 851 building now for meetings and you feel comfortable and you want to do that, we can certainly open up a room for utilization for that, just as long as it's under 10 and not large groups.
Okay. Diana, you were going to make a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, my comment is I don't think we should ever go away from doing the Zoom meetings, at least having that option for our residents, because our participation is outstanding and it'll continue to be, and we're getting a lot more involvement. So I'm 100% pleased with that. Meetings in person, frankly, we're all going to have to sit there with masks on, which makes it a little more uncomfortable for everyone. I mean, I'm wearing a mask in public. I would think everyone would have to do that if we were meeting, even if we were the sixth. I just don't think the logistics are quite there yet. I know I would feel more comfortable staying on Zoom unless it was a very small meeting that we had to have in person. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I mean, we've been able to do our executive sessions. We've been able to do lots of board meetings. We even interviewed and everything via Zoom, and I think it actually worked really well. So I'm pleased with how it's been going, and I would have no concerns at all with doing workshops and business as usual. Any other comments from board members?
Hey, Vanessa, this is Kevin. I just wanted to go ahead and almost echo nearly everything that everybody said. I love that we have made lemons out of lemonade when it came to the Zoom call and how to go ahead and complete these processes and continue engagement in the community and continue pushing that information. When it comes to the chat box specifically, I will say, to me, the way I see it is when you sit at the table as the board, you kind of look at the audience and you get a gauge, a temperature check on different topics, maybe a head nod, a smile, an angry face, whatever the case is. That chat box is almost what has given me that same outlook, if you will, as if we were all in the same room. One thing I would go ahead and encourage is, as we do find our way going to this blended mix of pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, perhaps Patrick can look into what he might need to do to replace that camera in the corner to a Zoom style that goes ahead and goes to this new platform. Perhaps have management discuss how they would field questions or comments that might be coming in the chat box when we're all there in person, because it's definitely different from the comfort of our living rooms to the full board meeting. But overall, I just want to give props to everybody. We've definitely learned. It's been a learning curve, and even this morning, I mean, we ended up completing business in 30 minutes, and the last 20 minutes we're just talking about this. So that's impressive right there. Of course, our agenda was smaller, but I do agree with what Brian said earlier, which is we need to get back to business now. It's a sad reality to say things like that, but we've now let 2 months of your real hard decisions in a different capacity than pandemic, but just for our community moving forward, that I think we need to start going back to. So if that means the formality of these needs to change from Friday call to Friday workshop and just do an hour each Friday, it kind of keeps us all in touch. It seems to keep it going. So those are loosely my comments, but I echo nearly everything everybody said.
Thank you. And before I open it up to Steve, I just wanted to see if there's anybody else on the board that has any comments before I open it up to public. Okay. Steve, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Steve Northridge, 1130 Tapestry Drive. In earlier board meetings, there was some discussion about putting a lot of the projects for recreation, put those on hold due to concerns regarding the income from things like assessments and also the anatomy piece of that as well. Subsequently, I think there was discussed in board meetings that some of the early assessment payments have been going okay, and the anatomy was going ahead with some of their plans as well, and that event costs potentially are going to be mitigated because they're not going to be doing them, so we have lower event costs. So the question I have is when is the board going to reconsider the recreation projects, and also maybe there's an opportunity at this point to maybe get a better price on some of those projects because maybe construction isn't as in demand. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate your insight. I think that's a fair comment and question. I think that we're not going to be able to address it at this particular board meeting, but I do certainly think with regards to our finances and things like that, as we move forward, we should be able to get a better idea as to how we want to progress. And again, I think doing workshops will help facilitate that. Board comments from anybody before we move on to fall events and future meeting discussions?
Oh,
Perfect,
David,
Steve. Go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Just commenting on Steve's points. I think that's a good point. Also, with the overlay from Brian and our treasurer, even though finances look good today, what's tomorrow going to look like? So the question is, and this is a good workshop discussion, is when might be a time to consider whatever those planned items were, and if we consider it, when might we consider moving forward with any of those with some pricing? And that's a good workshop discussion. Brian has a point.
I'm going to add 2 or 3 pages to the financial package for the May 22nd board meeting, or whatever date it is, May 27th, maybe.
27th, 24th, yeah.
You know, talk about receivables a little. I mean, the big picture is, yeah, it looks reasonable right now. To me, the financial exposure we have is late this year and into 2021. I mean, how fast is anyone going to get back to work? How much of their income are they really going to have and stuff like that? And that becomes the board discussion. We have a lot of uncertainty. So how much of a cushion do we want for potential bad news that could evolve over the next 18 months? And that's purely everybody can have their own best guess and a business judgment question.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. And just for quick technicalities, our next official board meeting is Wednesday, May 27th. But we will have again another Friday call update will be the 22nd. So the financials that Brian was referring to, I'm assuming you mean for our board meeting on the 27th, correct? Okay, I just want to clarify that. Thank you. board comments? Steve?
The only last item that I have is in about 5 minutes now, my team here is going to find out who the board selected as the new executive director for the community. And then as soon as they hear, I'll be emailing CJC and CROA boards, and then we'll do a distribution to the entire community so that everyone can kind of get a little bio of the new executive director. My staff doesn't know yet though, so I'm just priming you guys for the big reveal here in a little bit. And I know everybody's going to greatly miss me, but I'm really excited about this announcement for the new executive director. So we'll be getting that out this afternoon.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all in the chat for not saying that you won't miss me. I really appreciate that.
No board comments, huh?
Let's just move along.
Well, we're the board's still stuck with it at one point in time, though, right? We still deal with you.
I'm not completely leaving. I will still be very much invested in celebration.
Stuck or blessed?
Brian?
Stuck or blessed?
I'll just
Brian?
make a comment. Zoom for the interviews was actually a great process. I mean, there's people, the board knows this, but there's people in the public hearing this, because then you can watch the interview afterwards if you couldn't make it, or if you want to watch it again and stuff like that. So, you know, some of the lessons of the pandemic have been that there are ways to use technology that just weren't thought about before that really have benefits and help you in a lot of ways that were actually good, I think.
If I may, just to clarify for anyone listening, the interviews were great for us to review afterwards. They have now been destroyed. And
I was just going to say that. Thank you. Yes.
The tapes of the interviews are destroyed because any interview that would have occurred had it been live would have been in the room and there would have been no recording. So just to be clear, it was helpful for us to have that taped for those who could not be present, so every board member could review every interview. But that no longer exists. It's just in our brains now.
Correct. Thank you, David. Yeah, I appreciate that. The one thing that was really a difference from when Steve was being interviewed was if you weren't available to go to the interview process to interview, then you were not able, you really couldn't participate as a board member. With everybody's varied schedules and obviously with remote, it made it much easier so that the board could actually fully understand what was discussed, and tone and intonation and all of that was all very visual for the board to review. So, but yes, it has since been destroyed. So that is done. Any other comments, questions?
Yep.
Go ahead, Steve.
Vanessa, just one more thing. I'm still here for at least another month, 2 months, probably around middle of July, while we transition with the new executive director, moving their family here and getting situated, and then some training. So today's not my last day. You'll still see me around for a couple months.
And then some, probably.
And then some.
Probably.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I'll hop on.
Any other comments? Any other comments, questions? I'll open this up if there's any public comments, since we have a couple of minutes here. We have 2 minutes. Any public comments? Perfect. Then I shall move on. Any board comments? Then I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved. David.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, David. And who is the second? I'm sorry.
Kevin.
Kevin will second.
Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. So meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next Friday, the 22nd, for another Zoom call.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you,
Thank
Vanessa.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Be safe,
Have a great
everyone.
weekend.
Be safe.
Weekend. Bye, Steve.